My mother-in-law and I submitted our divorce papers on the same day. We turned around and married the father and son duo who were the direct superiors of the Zhao men. They had brought back a pair of sisters from the battlefield. My father-in-law wanted to take the elder sister as a concubine, tearing apart with his own hands the 16-year promise of being a lifelong, devoted couple. My husband wanted to take the younger sister and even forced me to raise her illegitimate child as my own legitimate son. He then turned around and complained about his mother, saying she was making a fuss at her age and that clamoring for a divorce was just her throwing a fit at his father. They never would have dreamed that my mother-in-law had never depended on anyone. Not only did she have the courage to leave the Zhao family, but she also met a husband who truly respected her. He was none other than the commander of the Fuyuan army, the direct superior of the Zhao men. He also had a son who was the same age as me. As for the good days of the Zhao father and son, from the moment they brought those sisters through the gates of the Zhao estate, their good days were over. The couple's argument got very ugly. My mother-in-law made her stance clear. If you insist on taking a concubine, then we shall divorce. I urged my husband to persuade his father. Miss Xingyan saved father's life, so we should indeed be grateful. But there are many ways to repay a debt of gratitude. We can buy a courtyard for the sisters and find them a livelihood. There is no need to bring her into the household, since father swore back then never to take a concubine. He should keep his word. But my husband said,
"It's just taking a concubine." Sigh. Mother is reacting far too dramatically. Father had a narrow escape from death this time, so he has probably seen through it all. He believes that while we are alive, we should enjoy life while we can. You should go and persuade mother instead. Father has remained faithful to her for over a decade. She ought to be satisfied.
I was stunned. But mother raised you to adulthood with her own hands. You ought to show her some understanding. Yes, my husband is not mother-in-law's biological child. Mother-in-law married into the Zhao family when he was 2 years old. Father-in-law was away fighting wars all year round, so it was mother-in-law who raised my husband all by herself. Back then, some people advised mother-in-law that she should have a biological child of her own so she would have someone to rely on in her old age. But mother-in-law said,
Lingchuan is my own flesh and blood.
My husband said displeasedly,
She is just a merchant's daughter. Back then, the condition for father marrying her was that she had to accept me and raise me, even without her. If father had married another woman, she would have raised me just the same. Now that she is so old, she is still making a fuss about divorce. She isn't even afraid of making herself a laughingstock. She has never given birth herself, and maternal grandfather and grandmother passed away long ago. After the divorce, is she going to live all alone for the rest of her life? Or does she think she can remarry someone else? She is merely trying to force father to compromise. You must never learn from her. The most important thing for the mistress of a house is to be generous and to have the tolerance to accept others. The window was not closed,
and the wind made the beaded curtain rustle loudly. My heart skipped a beat, and I suddenly stared toward the window, only to see mother-in-law standing there, though I didn't know since when. The late spring pomegranate petals were drifting down one by one, and a few touches of deep red adorned her hair, making her face look even paler. When she was bickering with father-in-law just now, she had seemed fairly calm, but now her eyes were red, glistening and filled with tears. I quickly stood up to greet her. And mother, what brings you here? Please come inside. I will pour some tea for you. Mother-in-law took a deep breath, wiped the corners of her eyes with a handkerchief, and walked over step by step, stopping in front of my husband. My husband stood up and called out respectfully,
Mother, please stop bickering with father. He is only taking a concubine. You will still be the primary wife of the Zhao family.
My mother-in-law trembled with rage. She raised her hand but ultimately did not strike him. Instead, she slammed her hand heavily onto the table. The teacups rattled loudly. My mother-in-law said coldly,
Zhao Lingchuan, I have truly wasted my affection on you all these years. Your father and I are definitely going to separate since you side with him. Then from now on, I no longer have a foolish son like you.
My mother-in-law flung her sleeves and left. I said anxiously, Husband, go and apologize to mother quickly. She raised you from childhood, pouring so much of her heart and soul into you. You shouldn't break her heart like this. My husband's eyes were bloodshot with anger. He roared,
She is the one who should apologize. Everything I said is the truth, even if I am in the wrong. Why should she talk to me like that?
Just then, a figure in moonlight rushed in.
Brother Lingchuan, are you all right? How could Annie fly into such a rage?
The beautiful girl's eyes shimmered with tears, filled with worry. Her delicate body shrank into my husband's embrace. My husband naturally opened his arms to catch her, frowning as he said,
Didn't I tell you earlier to be careful when walking? Do not run, and do not jump.
Zhou Yueyu's tears had already rolled down.
I was just worried about you.
My husband's attendant stood outside the door, looking extremely embarrassed.
I tried to stop her,
But I couldn't. Although the doors and windows were wide open, I felt suffocated. Husband, what is going on here? Zhou Yueyu bent her knees, preparing to kneel before me.
This concubine pays her respects to the madam.
My husband quickly supported her by the arm.
You are with child, so you must be careful. Do not keep kneeling like this.
I felt as if struck by a bolt from the blue. My eyes instinctively darted toward Zhou Yueyu's abdomen. Miss Yueyu also saved my husband's life. How many months along is the child? My husband did not even send word to inform me. My husband frowned, clearly displeased, yet he still suppressed his temper to reason with me.
Father was recovering from illness at the Zhou residence back then. I naturally had to visit him often. One day, I drank too much wine and committed a mistake. Yueyu is a pure and unmarried woman. I ought to take responsibility for her, the child in her womb. I have already had a physician examine her. It is highly likely to be a boy.
My husband took my hand.
This is my first flesh and blood. Yueyu has a weak constitution, and her family background is not high. I want to register the child under your name. You have been married to me for 3 years without giving birth. In the future, this child will be your support. If you treat him as your own, she will surely show you filial piety and respect.
While chatting, he caught sight of the table where a plate of lychees sat. One's my mother-in-law had gone to great lengths to find yesterday. The lychees were kept cold with thick ice, their color still fresh and bright. I had been reluctant to taste them, intending to wait for his return so we could enjoy them together. Zhou Yueyu asked curiously,
What is that?
He picked up the entire fruit plate.
They are lychees. Take them back to your room and try some.
Zhou Yueyu glanced at me.
But wouldn't this be taking away sister's favorite thing?
It's all right. She gets to eat them every year. She won't miss this one bite. You're pregnant, so we must look after you first.
After my parents passed away, I was sent to live with my uncle. Behind closed doors, I endured countless torments. That year, the Zhao family came to propose marriage, bringing a small basket of lychees as a gift. This fruit was rare in the north. I had only tasted it once when my parents were still alive, and I never forgot it. My cousin at my uncle's house, who always loved to snatch my things, took all the lychees for herself. That day, Zhao Lingchuan didn't particularly care for me at first, but after seeing how I couldn't win against my cousin and hid behind the rockery to wipe away my tears, he demanded the basket of lychees back for me and said,
They are not your real family. From now on, my father, and my mother will be your closest kin. Sherwan, you will soon have a new home. No one will ever be able to take your things away again. I will protect you for the rest of your life.
When he told me those things, I truly believed I had found the greatest blessing of my life. But in the end, it was nothing but a fleeting dream. The wind outside grew stronger, kicking up a lot of dust and debris, like sand blowing into my eyes, making the man in front of me look a bit blurry. I seemed to no longer understand him. Over these past 3 years, we spent more time apart than together. The total number of days we actually spent in one place was no more than 30. Perhaps, the one I had always been familiar with was only the Zhao Lingchuan of my dreams. I forced my eyes wide open, looking upward to keep the tears from falling. I have always been prone to crying. My mother-in-law used to tell me,
Only a man who loves you will cherish your tears. If he does not love you, your crying will only annoy him.
Zhao Lingchuan busied himself with his own arrangements.
Once father's concubine matter is settled, you must bring Yueyu into the manor as soon as possible, lest her pregnancy becomes too obvious and makes us a laughingstock to outsiders.
Zhou Yueyu spoke to him in a coquettish voice.
My room is so dark and lonely. I'm a bit scared to sleep alone.
She caressed her belly.
The baby is scared too.
Zhao Lingchuan said dotingly.
Then I will accompany you. Sherwan, Yueyu is not used to things yet since she just arrived. I will go to your room tomorrow.
He did not even turn his head, simply pulling Zhou Yueyu along as they walked away. As Zhou Yueyu crossed the threshold, she turned her head and gave me a smug, provocative smile. He had been away for nearly 2 years, yet on his first night back at the manor, he was not staying in the room of his primary wife. I could already imagine how the servants below would wag their tongues. My heart felt like a piece of linen soaked through with water, soggy, heavy, unable to be wrung dry or shaken off. In my days, I remembered that my mother-in-law must still be grieving over my father-in-law's faithlessness and Zhao Lingchuan's harsh words. I ought to go and comfort her. When I arrived at the main courtyard, I saw that her quarters were brightly lit and bustling with activity. The maids were packing chests and boxes of all sizes, while the accountants and stewards held account books, making the abacus beads clack loudly. My mother-in-law was calmly inspecting the surroundings, giving instructions from time to time.
We don't want this one anymore. It's not worth much and too heavy. This one must be taken along. Leave this one for Sherwan.
I panicked instantly. My mother-in-law really seems to be getting a divorce. What should I do then? Mother-in-law had already spotted me. She stepped forward, grabbed my hand, and led me inside.
Why are you here?
My voice grew softer, wanted to comfort you. but it seems somewhat unnecessary. Mother-in-law pulled a long face, her brow furrowed deeply as she sighed 3 times in a row. I suddenly felt uneasy. Mother, please do not be sad. I originally wanted to persuade Zhao Lingchuan, saying he was just speaking without thinking and didn't truly disregard her in his heart, but the words came out of my mouth as, to ruin your health over someone who isn't worth it is too much of a loss. Mother-in-law's face cleared up instantly.
Susu is right. With your comfort, I feel much better now.
Why did that sound like coaxing a 3-year-old? Mother-in-law led me by the hand all the way into the inner room. Inside, the open chests scattered all over the floor were gold, silver, and jewels. Mother-in-law's family was once a famous wealthy merchant family in Jiangnan with a substantial fortune, and she was their only daughter. After her parents passed away, the family business had always been managed by her.
Your father-in-law is staying in Zhou Xingyan's room tonight. He is deliberately showing me his displeasure, so I will definitely divorce him.
Speaking up to this point, mother-in-law caressed my face with heartache.
In this household, you are the one I worry about the most.
She walked to the table and gestured for me to look at a wooden box. The box had 4 tiers. The bottom tier are small silver banknotes of 50 taels each, totaling 5,000 taels. In the second layer are 2 land deeds for shops. The third layer holds gold and jade jewelry, and the very top layer is a pair of jade bracelets. Mother-in-law gently touched the jade bracelets with heartache.
These were my mother's relics, passed down to her by my grandmother, passed down from generation to generation. They are always left to the daughters of the family.
Mother-in-law's eyes grew red.
I have never given birth, but I have always regarded you as my own daughter. In the future, Zhao Lingchuan will probably behave just like his old man. These items, you must keep them safe for yourself. Heh. They all mock me for being reeking of money, yet they don't understand that in this world, without money, you can't take a single step. I insisted on forcing Zhao Lingchuan to marry you. Sigh. Looking at it now, I'm afraid I have only harmed you.
Indeed, back then, father-in-law and Zhao Lingchuan both had intentions of calling off the engagement. My parents had passed away, and my family's fortune had declined. I was merely an orphaned girl. Marrying me served no purpose, but mother-in-law slapped the table and said,
As human beings, we must keep our word. Since her parents have passed away, we should cherish and protect her all the more.
She truly treated me as her own child. Zhao Lingchuan was far away at the border, offering very little companionship. Mother-in-law, who accompanied me every day, was my sole pillar and support in the Zhao manor. Seeing all the plans she had made for me now, I threw my arms around her and wept bitterly. Mother-in-law, if you divorce him, what should I do? Zhao Lingchuan wants to take Zhou Yueyu as a concubine. She is already carrying his child, and he even said he wants to register the child under my name. My mother-in-law pushed me away in agitation, burning with rage.
What? That absolute bastard. I raised him for nothing. Huh.
After cursing, she realized something was off and quickly tried to cover it up.
I meant his father is completely muddled. I can tell those 2 sisters are up to no good. Today, a servant reported that Xingyan slipped into his study. I kindly warned your father-in-law to be careful, as the timing of those sisters' appearance is too convenient. They are likely spies. But Zhao Qinggo accused me of having malicious intentions, using such despicable means to slander his savior. This father and son are beyond saving. My mother-in-law poked my forehead. Cry, cry, cry. All you know how to do is cry. What are your actual thoughts on this?
Every man takes concubines, but spending every day with my mother-in-law had long since opened my eyes. I wiped away my tears and said timidly, I cannot bear him taking a concubine. My mother-in-law glanced at me sideways.
Before I leave, I will get rid of Zhou Yueyu for you.
I shook my head and said in a low voice, even if we drive her away, there will be countless others waiting. The one most in the wrong is Zhao Ling. My mother-in-law patted my shoulder happily.
I haven't spoiled you in vain these past few years. It's good that you think this way. Life is too short. Why waste it on fighting over a man? There is one more thing I haven't told you yet.
My mother-in-law showed a rare hint of bashfulness.
Actually, all these years, I have always had an admirer. Due to a twist of fate back then, by the time I learned of his feelings, I was already married into the Zhao family. He has also remained unmarried all these years. If he is still willing after my divorce,
I will probably marry him.
He has an eldest son, whose age is a perfect match for yours. One of these days, I will take you to meet him. If it works out, we can marry into the same household together and continue to be mother-in-law and daughter-in-law.
Oh, I wrung my handkerchief. He might not necessarily take a liking to me. My mother-in-law's gaze fell upon me, her face full of profound wisdom.
You know absolutely nothing about your own charm.
That night, I slept with my mother-in-law. In the middle of the night, thunder, and lightning startled me awake. My mother-in-law rolled over and sleepily patted my back.
Don't be afraid. I'm here.
I quickly fell back into a deep sleep, dreamless for the rest of the night. In the morning, my mother-in-law instructed the kitchen to prepare many delicious dishes.
Life is too short. We must never, because of men, miss out on fine food. We should eat what we want, drink what we want, and let nothing weigh on our hearts.
Just as we sat down, my father-in-law and Zhao Lingchuan walked in side by side. My father-in-law glanced at the table of fish soup, soy-braised beef, marinated chicken, dried venison, and shark fin soup, revealing a slight smile. He sat straight down.
I knew it all along. You were just throwing a tantrum. You certainly couldn't bear to actually divorce. Preparing such a sumptuous breakfast. You must have guessed I would come over, didn't you?
My mother-in-law let out a cold snort and did not respond. Zhao Lingchuan frowned, massaging his shoulder.
The wind and rain were heavy last night, and Yueyu's room is indeed damp. My old injury flared up again. Sherwan, your room is the most spacious in the eastern courtyard. The plum rain season is coming soon, and Yueyu is pregnant. For the sake of our flesh and blood, vacate your room for her first.
My room was the main chamber of the eastern courtyard in any household. It was meant for the young master and young mistress. He spoke so casually, as if asking me to give up a piece of pastry, a dress, or a pearl hairpin. Even before tasting the ice water, my heart had already gone completely cold. Sure, she can have it all to herself from now on. Zhao Lingchuan was taken aback, not expecting me to agree so readily. Then he turned, looking at my mother-in-law with 70% certainty and 30% secret delight.
Sherwan is indeed magnanimous. A primary wife should behave this way. Mother, Sherwan has only been married to me for 3 years, yet she is willing to let go. Father has kept his vow to you for over a decade. You should also let him have his wish for once, instead of putting on the face of a shrew.
I was trembling with rage, grabbed a teacup, and smashed it onto the floor. The shards scattered everywhere. Zhao Lingchuan was stunned, and even my father-in-law stared in astonishment. I shouldn't have been flustered, but this was the first time I had ever thrown things, so my whole body inevitably shook, and the words I spoke lacked any imposing force. You. Shut up. Mother has truly doted on you in vain all these years. You have disappointed me so much. You broke your promise. You don't deserve to be a husband at all. Zhao Lingchuan flared up. He gritted his teeth.
Song Sherwan, how dare you clash with your husband? If you keep making such a scene, there will be no peace in this house.
Fine. I nodded vigorously. Zhao Lingchuan, I am actually looking forward to divorcing you. I raised my head, emphasizing every single word with absolute determination. I want a divorce from you. Right now. This very instant. Immediately. I don't want to delay it for even a moment. With that said, I slapped the prepared divorce agreement right in front of his eyes. Sign it. From now on, your Lady Yueyu will be the young mistress of the Zhao household. The child in her womb will be the legitimate eldest grandchild. At the same time, my mother-in-law also pulled out a divorce agreement and pushed it in front of my father-in-law.
This is mine. I have said before, if you take a concubine, we shall divorce. You stayed at her place last night, showing that you no longer care about me, your primary wife. Since that is the case, there is no need for us to drag this out.
Both father and son were completely dumbfounded. The room fell into a terrifying silence. None of the servants dared to breathe heavily. My father-in-law was the first to snap out of it. He slammed his hand hard onto the divorce agreement.
Wang Yen ran.
16 years. I waited for you for a full 16 years. If you look at the entire capital, how many men could do what I did? I did all this for you, and you are still not satisfied?
My mother-in-law did not panic at all. She said coldly,
Back then you came to my door multiple times to beg for my hand in marriage and voluntarily signed a pledge never to take concubines. Only then did I agree to marry into the Zhao family. I have kept that pledge all this time. Do you want me to make a scene and let everyone in the capital know how ungrateful and faithless you are? You followed General Shao and returned to the capital victorious. The emperor will surely reward your service. At this critical juncture, if word gets out that you broke your oath and favored a concubine over your wife, how do you think the emperor will view you?
How powerful. My mother-in-law was always like this. No matter the circumstances, she always held the upper hand. Teaming up with her made me feel completely secure. My father-in-law clenched his fists tightly, his chest heaving violently. I was genuinely afraid he might strike her, so I instinctively stepped forward to shield my mother-in-law. If anyone dared to strike my mother-in-law, I would definitely fight back with everything I had. My mother-in-law's voice carried a hint of sorrow.
Zhao Qinggo, I am someone who cannot tolerate betrayal. You shouldn't have pushed your luck. Let us part ways amicably. If we take this to court and tear each other apart, what good will it do for either of us?
My father-in-law clenched his fists even tighter. The veins on his forehead bulged from the sheer force of his anger. Zhao Lingchuan tried to persuade her.
Mother, You are nearly 40 years old. How will you live on your own after a divorce? Which man doesn't have multiple wives and concubines? Mother, you should be more open-minded and stop leading Shirwan astray.
My mother-in-law cast a cold glance at him and said indifferently,
By the way, I have one more condition. Shirwan's divorce agreement you must also sign and seal.
Zhao Lingchuan stood up.
Lady Wang, do not go too far.
My mother-in-law ignored him completely. She simply took the divorce agreement and pushed it closer to my father-in-law.
Chingo, sign it, and you will be free.
Bloodshot veins appeared in my father-in-law's eyes. He stared intently at my mother-in-law.
After all these years as husband and wife, you won't even grant me this little bit of tolerance?
The maid handed over the writing brush. My father-in-law let out a cold laugh. He signed his name in anger.
It seems I have protected you too well, leaving you ignorant of how treacherous people are out there. I would like to see, without me, and once you leave the Zhao Manor, what kind of good life you can possibly lead.
The maid then handed the brush to Zhao Lingchuan. He hesitated. My father-in-law urged him on.
Why are you standing there like an idiot? This mother and daughter-in-law are in cahoots. Do you also want to be controlled for the rest of your life?
Father.
My father-in-law's face was cold as ice.
Sign.
Zhao Lingchuan signed and sealed the divorce agreement. I quickly snatched it over, carefully blew the ink dry, and tucked it safely into my robe. I did not forget to thank him politely. Thank you for granting this, young Master Zhao. Zhao Lingchuan's face turned from pale to red with anger. He gritted his teeth.
Song Shirwan, you are nothing but an orphan girl. You cut ties with your uncles and aunts long ago. Once you leave the Zhao Manor, and without me, how are you going to survive? I will give you a month's time. If you are willing to come back, I can let bygones be bygones. This time, our army won a great victory. My friendship with young General Xiao has always been deep. I will definitely be promoted. The position of the first wife is no longer something you can dream of.
I couldn't be bothered to listen to his nonsense. With a face full of excitement, I asked my mother-in-law, when are we moving?
Immediately.
As for where we were moving to, I didn't care. Anyway, following my mother-in-law could never go wrong. In the years since I married into this family, I had always followed her lead. It would definitely work out. My mother-in-law stood up and instructed the servants.
Take this food and divide it among yourselves. Using it to feed dogs would be too much of a waste.
The older maids and young maidservants swarmed forward. In just a few breaths, the items on the table were completely cleared away. Only then did Zhao Qinggo and Zhao Lingchuan snap out of it.
Was she just calling us dogs?
The father and son were furious. They stormed off with a flick of their sleeves, heading to their respective cozy nests to seek comfort. But before long, they couldn't sit still anymore, because the commotion in the courtyard was too loud. My mother-in-law was moving things out one by one, from small jewelry boxes to large carved beds. Even the large iron pot in the kitchen was packed into a crate and loaded onto a carriage. Disturbed by the noise, Zhao Qinggo and Zhao Lingchuan came out to see the massive moving crew, their brows furrowing deeply. Zhao Lingchuan asked,
Mother, where are you moving all these things to?
My mother-in-law unfurled two long ledger books.
This one is the dowry list from when I married into the Zhao family. And this one is the household property I purchased over the years, using the income from my dowry shops. Every single item is recorded clearly. Since we are parting ways, then it is only right that my dowry be moved out.
Mother-in-law looked toward Zhao Qinggo.
When I married into your family back then, how much dowry I brought with me. You know very well in your heart what kind of character I have, and whether I would use this chance to embezzle your Zhao family's assets. You should be able to judge for yourself.
At this moment, Zhao Qinggo stared at the endless line of chests and boxes, his eyes filled with utter confusion. He recalled when mother-in-law married him back then. The Zhao family was actually extremely poor, leaving only a barely decent courtyard that was completely empty inside. It was mother-in-law who brought her generous dowry into the house, revitalized the Zhao family's business, and brought about their subsequent prosperity. At this moment, a flash of regret crossed Zhao Qinggo's eyes. He waved his hand.
Take it. What belongs to you? The Zhao family will never claim by force.
Father.
Zhao Qinggo turned around, his steps slightly unsteady as he walked away. Zhao Ling looked toward me, his gaze falling back onto the wooden box in my arms. I held onto it tightly. These were all given to me by mother-in-law, bought with her own money. The chests behind us were the dowry I had brought with me when I married in. Zhao Ling's face was filled with extreme conflict. He pursed his lips. If you are reluctant to leave, I interrupted him. The robe you are wearing was made from fabric I bought with 20 taels of silver back then, sewn by my own hands. It was paid for with my personal savings. Can you return it to me? Of the things you gave me, I haven't taken a single one. The sachet I gave you before, the boots, and the knee pads were all paid for with my personal savings. When you marry a new wife in the future, keeping them would only be an eyesore. You might as well return them all to me. He stood frozen under the pomegranate tree, not replying for a long time. I was about to let it go, but he suddenly said,
Come and get them yourself.
Xiao Qi brought out all the items. I picked out the ones I had sewn myself, filling 2 whole chests. It was getting late, and I didn't want any more complications. Just these. You can dispose of the rest yourself. I turned to leave, but Zhao Lingchuan grabbed me.
Song Shinian. I admit I was wrong. Before, I was only focused on the child in Yueyu's womb and neglected you. I will change in the future. Don't leave, stay here, and continue to be my wife.
What nonsense are you talking? Startled, I flung his hand off and took several steps back to put distance between us, hurriedly saying, I don't want the items anymore. I don't want them. They're all yours. Dispose of them yourself. With that, I fled outside without looking back. Only when I rushed to mother-in-law's side did my heart finally settle. In less than half an incense burn's time, Zhao Lingchuan arrived with those 2 chests of items.
Since you've packed them all up, then take them away. The words I just spoke were completely sincere. I will wait for you for only half a year.
I thought about it and decided I shouldn't let my pride get in the way of money. Without any hesitation, I accepted the items and boarded the carriage without stopping. Mother-in-law had too many belongings. By the time we left the Zhao estate, night had already fallen. The wind blew up the carriage curtain. My mother-in-law and I looked back at the Zhao residence behind us. The 4 lanterns outside the main gate swayed in the cool breeze. Zhao Qinggo and Zhao Lingchuan, father and son, stood outside the gate. My mother-in-law stared at them for a long time and suddenly let out a long sigh. Just as I was about to offer some words of comfort, I heard her say,
I knew I left some things behind, but I just couldn't remember what. Those 2 pairs of lanterns under the eaves, the bronze rings on the main gate, and that pair of stone lions in front of the door. I paid for all of them. I've let those 2 off too easy.
After a tiring day, I went to bed very early that night. The next day, I was dragged out of my blankets by my mother-in-law.
Get up quickly and make yourself presentable.
I'm taking you to a matchmaking meeting. What? I was still half asleep. Isn't this a bit too rushed?
You've already separated from your husband, so you've long been free. Never mind a matchmaking meeting. Even if you were to get married today, it would be a proper, honorable marriage.
I rubbed my eyes, but I'm a bit apprehensive. Zhao Lingchuan was also very good back then, but in just 3 short years, his true colors showed. My mother-in-law poked my forehead hard.
Look at how timid you are. Without me, how badly would you have been mistreated? They say all crows under heaven are black, but you can't give up eating just because you once choked. As long as you don't view a man as your sole support in life, you will never fear being abandoned. We mustn't be afraid of starting over.
My mother-in-law specially chose a decent silk dress for me, telling me to walk with my head held high to look more spirited. We arrived first. My mother-in-law took my hand.
Don't panic. I've made inquiries about this young man. He is an upright and dependable fine fellow, but no matter how good he is, you have to like him yourself. If you don't take a fancy to him, then I will adopt you as my own daughter, and we will never be apart for the rest of our lives.
I felt like crying again. My mother-in-law interrupted me sternly.
No crying. You'll ruin your makeup in a moment.
Just then, a young, disgruntled voice came from outside the room.
I have no complaints about whoever you want to marry, but there's no reason to drag me, your own son, into this. I told you long ago, I don't want to start a family. I already have someone I love.
A deep voice scolded him.
Shut up. Today is just an introduction. The young lady might not even take a liking to you.
I squeezed my handkerchief tightly, thinking to myself, sure enough, he is an unmarried man. So how could he ever take a liking to a woman who has been married before? My mother-in-law patted my lower back, reminding me to sit up straight. The door to the private room was pushed open, revealing the faces of the father and son. They were so tall. Zhao Lingchuan was already much taller than average men, but this young master was at least half a head taller than him. Both of them had slightly tanned skin, looking like men from the military camp at first glance. My mother-in-law held my hand as we stood up to bow. The middle-aged man's gaze fell upon my mother-in-law's face, and his stern brow softened into a warm smile.
Yen Ran, long time no see.
A blush rose on my mother-in-law's cheeks. She pointed at me and said,
This is my former daughter-in-law.
And this is my son, Xiao Jingheng.
Xiao Jingheng bowed to me with great respect.
Greetings, young lady.
We both looked up, and our eyes met. This man looked somewhat familiar. He stared intently at my face and asked with a trembling voice,
Song Sherwand. You are divorced? When did this happen?
My face flushed completely red. I whispered, Yesterday. To my surprise, Xiao Jingheng's face turned red with excitement. He grabbed my wrist.
So that's how it is. You already divorced yesterday. Why didn't we meet yesterday then? Why did we have to wait until today?
Huh? I was completely dumbfounded. Instinctively, I tried to pull my hand back. He quickly let go, his face blushing as red as a beet.
I'm sorry, I got too excited.
After saying this, he looked at his father.
Father, when can we get married? Is this month too soon?
Xiao Yuanyue gave him a punch.
Sit down and talk properly.
Xiao Jingheng hurriedly sat down. Seeing that the teacup in front of me was empty, he eagerly poured some water for me. I wrung my handkerchief and said in a low voice, Uncle Xiao. It is quite all right. Young Master Zhao's heart belongs to someone else. There is no need to force him. I understand that I have been married before. Young Master Xiao can simply decline. Xiao Jingheng broke free and rushed in front of me, sweating profusely in his anxiety.
I am not playing with you. The one in my heart is you. I wanted to marry you long ago, but you had a husband before, so it was not proper for me to disturb you. I could only watch over you in secret. Look at me closely. Do you really not remember? 2 years ago, by the Jinchuan River in the east of the city, did you save someone?
Oh, it was actually him. That was during my first year of marriage into the Zhao family. I was returning to the manor after collecting rent when I came across a young man by the Jinchuan River who had been shot with an arrow and fell into the water, already showing no signs of life. My mother-in-law once taught me how to save drowning people. I couldn't care less about the propriety between men and women. I personally performed mouth-to-mouth resuscitation and chest compressions on him. I spent a full half-hour busy at it before I finally brought him back to life. Before we parted, he wanted to come to my house to propose marriage to repay me, which scared me into quickly refusing him, and repeatedly warned him never to come looking for me. After returning to the manor, I was on edge for an entire month, and only felt relieved when no one came to the door. I had long since put this matter completely out of my mind. I never expected that the person I was meeting today for matchmaking turned out to be him. Right at that moment, someone knocked on the door of the private room.
Master, I have an urgent matter to report. Lady Song got divorced yesterday and went out for a matchmaking meeting early this morning.
Xiao Jingheng yanked the door open, tightly covered his mouth, and gave me a dry laugh.
I absolutely had no intention of spying on you. I was just concerned about you.
Seeing me, the attendant instantly understood the situation. He said loudly,
Lady Song, ever since you saved my master, he has never stopped thinking about you. He kept himself pure and waited for so many years.
Xiao Jingheng kicked him, and the attendant ran off without a trace. Xiao Yuanyue let out a sigh and spoke earnestly.
Lady Song, this must be the will of heaven. 2 years ago, my son was targeted by villains. If not for you, alas, I'm afraid he and I would have been separated by life and death. I swear to you right here and now, if he ever dares to let you down in the future, I will be the very first one to teach him a lesson.
Xiao Jingheng said in surprise.
How could I ever let her down? I've been looking forward to marrying her so much.
His dark eyes locked firmly onto mine, dead serious.
You are the only one I have ever hoped to marry. In this lifetime, I will only marry you. Can we grow old together? From youth to gray hair? I have been married before.
Do you not care?
It is entirely my fault for meeting you too late, which allowed you to marry someone else.
He smiled, his eyes curving up, his handsome face showing a hint of silly affection.
Fortunately, you didn't make me wait too long.
I looked toward my mother-in-law. She had always been the one to make the big decisions, but this time, she said,
For this one matter alone, you must follow your own heart.
We had just parted ways yesterday, and today I was agreeing to marry someone else. This didn't seem quite proper, but a voice in my heart said, why care so much about all that? He is so sincere. Even if it doesn't end well in the end, I can still thoroughly enjoy his deep affection right now. Time flies by so quickly. How could I let uncertain future variables make me shrink back from embracing the solid happiness right in front of me? I let out a long sigh and slowly reached my hand out to Xiao Jingheng. Since you are proposing, is there no token of pledge? Xiao Jingheng took 2 steps back, a bright light bursting in his eyes. He searched himself from head to toe and finally stuffed a bronze token into my hand.
I didn't know I was meeting you for a matchmaking today. This is the most valuable thing on me.
This is his identity token from the military camp. I must trouble Miss Song to keep it safe for me. I will bring another token tomorrow to exchange for it.
Inside the carriage on the way back to the manor, I examined the token closely and noticed the words Young General engraved on the back. I was stunned. Could he be the young commander of the Fuyuan Guard, Zhao Lingchuan's direct superior?
Yes.
My mother-in-law said, glancing at me.
Are you afraid?
There was actually nothing to be afraid of. Instead, a strange sense of delight welled up inside me. Zhao Lingchuan had claimed I couldn't survive without him. Yet here I was, about to marry his direct superior. Upon returning home, I instructed my maid, Yao Yao, to find my old cosmetic box. I dug out a faded red string and wrapped it around my wrist. This was the only item left on Xiao Jingheng when I saved him all those years ago. Back then, fearing he might come to repay the favor, I had asked for this red string as a token of gratitude. After returning home, I had carelessly tossed it into the box, never expecting to find it again. The next day, the Xiao father and son visited our manor. They presented a new betrothal token and took back the identity token. When Xiao Jingheng saw the red string on my wrist, he became incredibly excited. You actually kept it. The Xiao family's visit today was also to discuss an important matter. They had heard that the Empress Dowager's illness had suddenly worsened and she was now in a deep coma. If something unfortunate happened to her, the country would enter a state of national mourning and the father and son would not be able to marry for at least a year.
A year? I cannot wait that long.
The elder Lord Xiao also gazed quietly at my mother-in-law.
Yanran, we have already missed out on over 10 years. I, too, worry that delays will bring trouble.
The Xiao family suggested that within 10 days, we invite only close family and friends, hold a simple wedding banquet, and register our marriages at the government office. Once the Empress Dowager's situation settled next year, we could hold grand wedding ceremonies. My mother-in-law agreed.
I too had never cared for tedious formalities. We are both marrying for the second time, so there is no need for a grand celebration.
Seeing that she agreed, Xiao Jingheng was as excited as if he had fleas on him. If his father hadn't held him down, he probably would have jumped 3 zhongs high long ago. When bidding farewell, he pulled me behind the long corridor, his face completely flushed.
Can I hug you?
His gaze was sincere and burning hot, like a bright, clear fire. Yes, he held me tight, gently at first, then slowly tightening his embrace. He lowered his head, resting his chin on my shoulder, his tone carrying the dampness of a summer rain.
Absolutely wonderful. Being able to marry you is the luckiest and happiest thing in my life.
At this second, my heart throbbed wildly. Since childhood, I had lived watching my uncle and aunt's expressions, becoming insecure and timid. What I yearned for was precisely this kind of blatant recognition and favoritism, a fire that could warm me up and light up my life. In the blink of an eye, the wedding day arrived. The Xiao family had few members. The relatives gathered only filled 2 tables. The other 2 tables were for the military officers and close friends. When Xiao Jingheng pulled me across the threshold, I couldn't see his expression, but I could feel that his palm was completely sweaty. The attendants were all teasing him.
Our young general has finally won the beauty's hand this time. We just don't know what kind of appearance and temperament our sister-in-law has to be able to capture our Iron Tree general.
Zhao Lingchuan laughed.
I don't know about other things, but the young general will definitely be henpecked in the future. Back when we were in the military camp, the young general always liked to seek me out for drinks and loved listening to me talk about the way of husband and wife. If he got hold of any good things, he would keep one portion for his beloved and give another portion to me, so I could give it to my wife.
Everyone burst into laughter together. My heart skipped a beat. When Zhao Lingchuan was in the army earlier, those novel trinkets he sent back to me, could they have all been prepared by Xiao Jingheng?
Brother Zhao, how did I hear that you and your wife divorced just a few days ago?
Zhao Ling fell silent for a moment.
I wanted to take a concubine, and my wife is just throwing a tantrum. What man doesn't have 3 wives and 4 concubines? Besides, Yueyu is carrying my child. I'll just persuade her another day. She's an orphan. Aside from returning to me, she has nowhere else to go. She'll be fine once she cools down. Less the more I persuade her, the more strained it gets. I'm not like the young general, who is henpecked.
Without me realizing, Xiao Jingheng was already standing behind me. He took my hand and gave me a bright smile.
Let's go inside. Is this appropriate? Won't it cause people to gossip about you? You are the wife I married with a grand bridal sedan.
It is only right. The midsummer sun was extremely scorching. I wore an eye-catching peach-red bridal gown. As I stepped over the threshold, the lingering glow of the fierce sun still rested on my skirt. Everyone squinted their eyes instinctively. It took them several breaths to clearly see my face. Everyone's faces changed instantly, especially Zhao Lingchuan, who stood up abruptly.
Sherwan, why are you here?
Something was wrong.
The young general is getting married.
Why would he invite you? Xiao Jingheng raised our joined hands and chuckled.
Lieutenant Zhao, Sherwan is my newly wedded wife. You should address her as sister-in-law.
The entire hall fell into a dead silence. Zhao Lingchuan's face flushed red with anger. He looked at the bridal phoenix crown on my head, then stared at our tightly clasped hands, and said, trembling,
Sherwan, didn't we just part ways 10 days ago? We were married for 3 years. How could you turn around and marry someone else so quickly?
Xiao Jingheng shielded me behind him in one swift motion.
I have been in love with Shirwan for a long time, but I never showed my face before her earlier, to avoid causing trouble for you too. Now that she is divorced, I must seize the opportunity, and never let her slip away from my side again. That was me who begged for her hand.
Zhao Qinggo was on the other side of the screen. After rushing over, his face also changed dramatically upon seeing me. Zhao Lingchuan gritted his teeth, his fists clenched tight.
Xiao Jingheng, you go too far.
Seeing that he was about to lose his temper, Zhao Qinggo quickly stepped forward to block him.
Are you out of your mind? You signed the divorce papers yourself. And you watched her leave the Zhao manor with your own eyes. After the divorce, she is a free woman. It is only natural for her to marry whomever she wants. Don't lose your mind here.
Unfortunately, his composure did not last long because my mother-in-law, having changed her clothes, arrived side by side with my new father-in-law. My mother-in-law said with a smile,
Today is a wedding feast. If you want to spar, it would be more appropriate to settle it at the training grounds another day.
Zhao Qinggo trembled all over. He slowly turned around and saw my mother-in-law affectionately holding my new father-in-law's arm. Her eyes filled with sweetness. He could not believe it and gasped.
Yan Ren. My mother-in-law smiled faintly. General Zhao, it would be more appropriate for you to call me sister-in-law.
My new father-in-law was the commander of the Fuyuan army, his direct superior. This title of sister-in-law is only natural.
You. How could you?
My mother-in-law threw his own words right back at him.
You stamped the divorce papers yourself. You watched me leave the Zhao residence with your own eyes. After the divorce, I am a free woman. It is only natural for me to marry whomever I wish. Such common sense, General Zhao should surely understand.
Zhao Qinggo clutched his chest, barely able to catch his breath.
But our decade-long affection.
My mother-in-law's eyes turned cold.
Indeed, for over a decade I raised your children and managed your household, yet you broke your promise and stabbed me right in the heart. Zhao Qinggo, ha! Some remain strangers after growing old together, while others feel like old friends at first sight. After staying together for over a decade, I suppose you never truly understood me.
Zhao's father took my mother-in-law's hand.
Brother Zhao, Lingchuan, if you are truly here to congratulate us today, the Xiao residence will serve you with good wine and food. But if you are here to cause trouble, then by all means, give it a try.
Zhao Qinggo clutched his chest and stumbled back 2 steps. The onlookers also stepped forward to hold Zhao Lingchuan back, signaling him to control himself. Zhao Lingchuan took several deep breaths, his gaze passing over Xiao Jingheng's shoulder to lock onto my eyes, filled with deep anguish.
Shirwan, are you doing this on purpose to provoke me? I was wrong. I shouldn't have brought Yuyu back to the estate. I will settle her elsewhere. I will keep her outside and never see her again. Come back to the estate with me. You will still be my primary wife.
You see, he knows exactly what to do to make me happy and comfortable. He knew it all along. He just didn't do it before because it didn't hurt enough. I said softly, Jingheng and I have already registered our marriage at the government office. He is my husband now. I was considerate of you because I thought you held me in your heart as well. Only today do I understand that those rare gifts from far away were never your true affection. I looked up at him. You once helped me and protected me. I don't resent you, but I no longer love you. Zhao Lingchuan, let us part ways in peace from now on. I hope you can be man enough to wish me a happy marriage, a lifetime of devotion to one person. I didn't understand what love was before. I mistook gratitude for love, thinking that marrying a decent man meant it was naturally love. But meeting Xiao Jingheng made me realize that love is fulfillment, love is restraint, love is guarding each other in silence, and love is a blazing fire, an uncontrollable heartbeat, and a possessiveness that cannot let go. Zhao Lingchuan's face turned pale, his lips trembling uncontrollably. After a long time, 2 lines of tears streamed down his cheeks. He brushed his sleeves and turned to leave. I'm sorry.
I cannot do it.
At this very second, after completely losing me forever, he truly fell in love with me. It turns out his love is an inability to let go and boundless regret. After sending off the guests, we finally entered the bridal chamber. Xiao Jingheng had been drinking, so his movements were slow. He stood before me, looking somewhat at a loss, and scratched his head.
Shirwan, I'm a little nervous.
I couldn't help but laugh out loud. What is there to be nervous about? He fished an exquisitely crafted sachet out from his robe and stuffed it into my hands, his face flushed red.
This is for you.
I took the sachet and realized the craftsmanship looked so familiar. It seemed to be sewn by me. I looked at Xiao Jingheng in confusion. His face was completely red.
Once, Zhao Lingchuan came to my room for drinks and left this sachet behind. He never looked for it after he left, so I didn't return it. There was no name embroidered on it, so sometimes I would let my mind wander, pretending this sachet was a gift from you to me. I'm sorry. I am so despicable.
I gently placed the sachet on the desk, stood on my tiptoes, cupped his face, and kissed him softly. I will sew one for you later. No, I'll embroider 10 of them, each with both of our names on them. Xiao Jingheng scooped me up in his arms with excitement.
Really? Sure one. I will treat you well for the rest of my life.
I leaned close against his chest, listening to his steady heartbeat. My heart felt so incredibly at peace. The next morning, we went to offer tea. Mother came in, holding her waist.
Sigh. My old bones.
There are no outsiders in our household anyway, so let's skip these morning and evening formal greetings from now on.
My new father-in-law, however, was in high spirits. Father and son share the exact same temperament. I am truly speechless. My father-in-law and husband were so famous that someone accused them of seizing other men's wives, taking the matter all the way to the emperor. The emperor slammed his desk and said,
"Do you think I don't know about the scandalous affairs of the Xiao father and son? Previously, when I wanted to arrange a marriage for Xiao Yuanhua, he claimed he already had a woman in his heart, but that woman was already married, so he didn't want to disturb her. Later, when I planned to arrange a marriage for his son, Xiao Jingheng, he claimed the one he fancied was also a married woman. They nearly drove me mad with anger. If they had intended to forcibly take their subordinates' wives, why would they have waited for so many years? I still rely on this father and son to lead my armies in battle. The rest of you, stop making a fuss here."
Mother told me she had met father before she got married. At that time, father was still a young general. In his battles against the Beatty tribe, he suffered defeat after defeat. Mother came up with several effective military strategies to help father defeat the enemy and secure victory. But by the time he planned to express his gratitude to mother, she had already moved away from the northern border with her family and headed to the capital. By the time father found her and wanted to propose marriage, mother had already agreed to marry into the Zhao family. With a wistful look, mother said,
I have been through so much, and seen through so many things. Back then, seeing how small Zhao Lingchuan was, and how pitiful he was without his birth mother, I agreed to marry Zhao Qinggo. I never expected that in the end, he would still betray my affection.
I held mother close and snuggled against her. No matter what you have been through, you are the best mother to me in this life. Mother smiled.
Yes, you are my true flesh and blood, the good daughter who will accompany me in this life.
Only a few days after our wedding, under the dedicated care of the imperial physicians, the Empress Dowager slowly regained consciousness. The emperor was overjoyed. Not only did he bestow many treasures upon the Xiao estate, but he also issued a decree naming mother a first-class noble consort. Even I received many rewards and favors. Xiao Jingheng held my hand tightly, his smile brighter than spring flowers.
From now on, I will always be by your side, and I will never let you suffer any grievances again.
6 months after our wedding, a great disaster struck. The current Prime Minister Li, along with several key court officials, were suddenly all poisoned with a lethal toxin, their lives hanging by a thread. They were all pillars of the imperial court. If they all perished, the court would surely fall into chaos. With such a case occurring right under the emperor's nose, the emperor was furious. He ordered the Imperial Medical Academy to treat them immediately, while commanding the Court of Judicial Review to investigate thoroughly. Fortunately, mother was highly experienced and recognized that the poison came from the Northern D tribe. During her travels years ago, she had encountered a Northern D nobleman. Having lost a bet to her, he had gifted her a porcelain vial of this very poison. An old servant who had served mother for years advised,
"If you present this poison, madam, it will inevitably arouse the emperor's suspicion."
I steeled myself and said, "Why don't I present it instead? We can say it was left to me by my deceased parents. After all, dead men tell no tales. If the emperor wishes to assign blame, I will bear it alone." Xiao Jingheng was shocked.
You usually seem so delicate and prone to tears, yet you are so brave at a critical moment like this. Even if the sky falls, I will bear it for you. How could I ever let you walk into danger?
In the end, father took mother to the palace and explained the situation to the emperor. The emperor was open-minded and did not blame them at all. He immediately summoned the physicians to come over. With the poison in hand, formulating the antidote became much simpler. Once everyone was cured of the poison, the emperor breathed a sigh of relief and bestowed generous rewards upon mother and father. At the same time, Zhao Qinggo and Zhao Lingchuan requested an audience. Behind them, they brought the Zhou sisters, who were bound hand and foot. As it turned out, the two sisters were actually spies. Mother had previously warned Zhao Qinggo to look into the sisters' backgrounds, but they had not taken it to heart at all. It was not until this incident occurred and the Court of Judicial Review launched a strict investigation that the two sisters, seeing their plot exposed, attempted to flee for their lives, only to be caught red-handed by Zhao Lingchuan. The emperor was absolutely furious. He stepped down from his throne and kicked the father and son.
One of you is the commander of the Western Route, and the other is a subordinate general. You almost caused a catastrophic disaster.
According to the law, the two of them should have been beheaded. However, after several thorough investigations by the Court of Judicial Review, it was ultimately proven that they had indeed been deceived. Father and Xiao Jingheng stepped forward to plead for mercy, and mother also pleaded on behalf of Zhao Qinggo. Though he failed me, I believe he would never fail Great Chu. In the end, the entire Zhao family estate was confiscated. The Zhao father and son were stripped of their official titles and demoted to commoners. They were banned from entering the capital for the rest of their lives, and they were permanently barred from serving in the imperial court. On the day Zhao Lingchuan left the capital, Xiao Jingheng took me along to see him off, ruined and full of regret. He looked as if he had 1,000 words to say, but in the end, they only boiled down to 2 sentences.
I'm sorry. Xiao Jingheng, you must never fail her.
I stuffed a bag of silver into his hands. Last time, I took back all the gifts I had given you. You can pawn them in the future. This is the money I got from pawning them. Keep it safe. You and your father will need it. Tears poured from his eyes.
Do you resent me?
I shook my head, looking at Xiao Jingheng standing under the tree in the distance. I wouldn't call it resentment. I only realize now that I never actually loved you. Right now, I even feel I should thank you, because by letting go of the wrong person, I was able to meet the right one. Although I said I didn't blame him, his face turned deathly pale, devoid of any color. I didn't want to waste any more words. Zhao Lingchuan, farewell. I turned around and quickly threw myself into Xiao Jingheng's arms. Looking up at him, I asked, "You will stay with me for the rest of your life, right?" The man knitted his brows.
Other than me, who else could you possibly hope to spend your life with?
He held my shoulders tightly.
Since you have fallen into my hands, don't even think about escaping in this lifetime.
Behind us, the winter sun was slowly sinking below the horizon. The world was about to plunge into darkness, but my heart remained forever in the light. From then on, we each found our own happiness, living peaceful and smooth lives. This experience also made me gradually realize that a woman does not need to be trapped by domestic affairs and romance, nor does she need to depend on a man to survive. To face challenges with confidence, to hold the means of one's own independence, and to know when to cut one's losses is the truly wise choice. For misplaced affection, there is no need to dwell or obsess. Only by bravely saying goodbye to the wrong person can one have the chance to meet a destination of true devotion. No matter what circumstances you find yourself in, stay true to yourself, remain independent and strong, and a beautiful destiny in life will eventually come. This is the best growth that time has bestowed upon us.